Welcome along to the continuation of Tenancy Deposit Protection Week 2017 here on Property Tribes, powered by our TDP partner TDS. And I'm joined by CEO Steve Harriott once again. And Steve, I thought we'd talk today about the choices that landlords have, because there's two different types of scheme, custodial and insured. How do they know which one is best for them?
Okay, so I think my first point is that either scheme, either custodial or insured, they meet the requirements of the legislation in terms of protecting deposits. And I guess the choice is really down to the landlord to decide which scheme to use. So perhaps if I talk a little bit about the differences between the two schemes, and that might help inform the judgment. So in the custodial scheme, the real difference there is that landlords actually transfer the deposit to us to hold as custodian. That's where it gets its name. So we're holding the deposit for the length of the tenancy. So at the start of the tenancy, the landlord, if they want to use custodial, has to transfer the deposit to us. We hold the deposit during the tenancy. We benefit from whatever interest we can make on that deposit in the bank. And at the end of the tenancy, landlord and tenant will agree how the deposit should be allocated, and we will make the payments back to the parties. For the landlord, the key benefit there is a free service. There's no charge at all. All you need to do is to transfer the tenant's deposit to us. The insured scheme is somewhat different in the sense that for that type of scheme, the landlord keeps the deposit in their bank account. What they have to do, however, is to register the fact that they're protecting that deposit with us by going online and purchasing a deposit protection. That effectively is a guarantee that we give to the landlord that the deposit is actually protected under law, but it's also guaranteed to the tenant to say, if for whatever reason you don't get your deposit back from the landlord, come to us and we'll try and sort it out for you. The insurance scheme is different, however, to the custodial in that because the landlord's holding the deposit, we can't get any interest on that deposit. So we would charge the landlord a fee, an annual fee for protecting the not an annual fee, a fee for protecting the deposit for the life of the tenancy. And what that means is that the landlord there benefits from having the deposit in their bank account, but is paying a fee to us to protect it. For the tenant, it doesn't really matter what happens, whether it's the insured or custodial. In either case, their deposit is protected. It is a matter of choice, and ultimately it probably comes down to price. Some landlords might feel that they simply want to hand the deposit over and not worry about it. In other cases, landlords say, no, I actually like to have that deposit in my bank account. It gives me an extra degree of security, perhaps in their own mind, and they're prepared to pay the modest fee to protect the deposit.
Now, there are three different government-approved schemes that landlords can choose from, regardless of how they're going to protect the deposit.
Correct.
Why do you think, or why do you hope landlords would choose TDS?
So TDS has been the longest running scheme. We were running a voluntary scheme before the legislation came into effect in 2007. What makes us different? I think the key difference to me is that we're an industry-backed scheme. So TDS was set up by ARLA and the RICS, and we also work very closely with the Residential Landlords Association. So that means we have a huge amount of knowledge and experience of what it's like to be a private sector landlord or letting agent. The other key difference for us is that we're not for profit. So what that means is we don't pay dividends out to shareholders. We're not having to make huge profits to satisfy our stakeholders in the background. What it means is that we really exist to run this scheme for the benefit of tenants and landlords. So if we make any surpluses during the year, all those surpluses are reinvested back in improving our services and our technology. We sometimes make grants to a charitable foundation which exists to raise standards in the private rented sector. And I think because we've been able to retain that not-for-profit status, we've really heavily invested over the last 10 years in our IT systems and our services. And I think you'll find, if you compare the IT systems that we're using, we think they're better than our competitors. And certainly on customer service, if you compare our publish key performance indicators on, for example, how quickly we take to answer the telephones to our thousands of calls we get each week, you'll find that we do that much more quickly than our competitors. So not-for-profit, customer service, great systems, that's really what I think marks us out from our competitors.
And you go that extra mile to support landlords because you have your training events as well.
Correct, yeah. So one of the things that we're really keen to do is to raise standards in the private rented sector. Yeah. So we get out of our way really to provide information. Go on our website, there's a huge amount of information that's freely available to landlords and tenants to download, to read, to digest, to take benefit of. Please call us on our customer service line. We have colleagues here from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 p.m. at night ready to take calls. And yes, as you said, we run a thing called the TDS Academy, which is a series of training events that landlords and agents can come along to, where we will talk to them about how to meet the legal requirements around deposit protection, what you need to get things right at the beginning in terms of tenancy agreements and inventories and checkouts and rent statements. And we'll also talk through the process of raising a dispute with us and what you need to do as a landlord to make sure that you handle disputes properly. All of that is available to our letting agent and landlord members.
Steve, part of your remit of landlord education is your support of property tribes, and it's thanks to our partners' support that Property Tribes remains a free-to-use community resource. So we really do want to encourage you that when your next deposit comes up for protection, please do move it across to TDS, because you're actually supporting Property Tribes as a free-to-use community resource. And Steve, it's not actually too difficult to move a deposit from one scheme to another, is it?
No, I think and we'll give you advice on that if you want to do that, but essentially, if you have a deposit in a custodial scheme elsewhere, speak to us and we'll help you move that deposit across from that scheme to our own TDS custodial scheme. And the same for the insurance-backed products. There's a process to go through. We just need to make sure that you're protected as landlords, that you don't end up in a situation where inadvertently you move a deposit from one scheme and it remains unprotected. So we'll talk you through that process. We do it every day, week in, week out. We help lots of landlords move to TDS.
Stay tuned for more on Property Tribes Tenancy Deposit Protection Week, where we are celebrating 10 years of TDP in England and Wales. Lots more to come.